Hey everybody, it's Romania Black, and we are almost done with Volume 4 of Heaven Official's Blessing. Yes, we actually have this week and next week to finish up Volume 4. What a trip! It's been, I feel like this volume's gone by really quickly. And also, I have a new dog. So I have Huckleberry, and now I have two dogs, Huckleberry and Ruby. And so they've been getting acquainted with each other again this weekend. So if they bark, that is why. Hopefully they'll be good though. But yeah, we're almost done with this volume. We have this week, which we're looking at chapters 132 through 134. And then next week, the final chapter 135 is its own chapter. And I'm actually going to be finishing volume 4 and starting volume 5 the same week. So next week, we'll have chapters 135 as well as chapters 136 from volume 5. So I'm really excited, right? I cannot wait. I'm really super excited, but I'll be honest, this volume, it seems like it has simultaneously gone by really quickly, and yet we've been here a while. So that's how I felt with every volume of Heaven Official's Blessing. It feels like we've been here a while, but this one feels like it's also gone by very quickly. And I think that's because the chapters have been very fast paced. It's not been like the exposition dump that Volume 3 was. And not that that's a bad thing, but Volume 3 had so much backstory to sift through. And it was a big volume. This one is a little bit smaller than Volume 3. And I feel like the chapters have just gone by very, very quickly. So pretty exciting though. But I actually, last week's video came out on Patreon on my birthday, and it's going to come out on YouTube this following week. This one is actually going to come out. I'm actually recording this on my birthday. So I've had a great birthday. Thank you all for the birthday wishes. And I decided tonight to round out my evening for my birthday. It's really hot, so I'm like dressed. It's very humid and hot, so I'm kind of dressed for the occasion. But I wanted to read Heaven Official's Blessing. So that seemed like the best way. I've technically spent half of today. I took the day off of work. I had a vacation day I could use. So I took the day off. I did some adult things. And then I spent the afternoon reading Volume 5 of Modao Zushi, which just came out. It's on my shelf now. Reading all the extra fun stories for that. And now I'm rounding out my day with Heaven Official's Blessing. So I've had the perfect MXTX Monday, to say the least. So I do have a few comments before we start this set of chapters, though. Mado Kuda talked about how Xie Wudu's final words of "my fate is up to me, not the heavens," is very reminiscent of what Xie Lian told the Goshi when he was about standing up against the heavens till the end, way back in Volume 3. So I was like, that's a really good connection. And Mado kind of wondered if maybe that's why Xie Lian had that reaction to Xie Wudu, is that in that moment, they were like, oh yeah, I was kind of exactly like you, except luckily, I didn't get decapitated. So yeah, it's curious to see the similarities of Xie Wudu to Xie Lian in that moment. I do think there's also a lot of differences between them, but the point where both of them stubbornly take matters into their own hands. We talked last week about Xie Wudu and Xie Lian's connections. So I like that one as well. That's really cool. I like it. Beautiful World talked about how, despite the fact that many people didn't come to the funeral of Xie Wudu or came to like give condolences for the Windmaster, Pei Ming and Ling Wen, they did. So despite all the Windmasters saying how fake they were, in the end, Pei Ming and Ling Wen, they were ride or die bros for our Water Master. And I'm like, I guess that is a good thing to note, that despite it all, those two were definitely genuine friends to him. And that's really cool. So thank you, Beautiful World, for pointing that out. And then finally, Anime Annie had a couple comments here. One, Xie Lian did not deny to Pei Ming that Hua Cheng was his. And it's like, did not deny that at all. And that Xiao Hua translates to little flower. We talked about this in the Discord. I just love that San Long is like making himself as aesthetically pleasing as possible. He's out there in the fields, like an 8-pack, glistening in sweat, wiping his brow. The villagers are going gaga over him. He is looking as hot as he possibly can. And Xie Lian's like, what a nice guy. He's so oblivious. But you can't get mad at him because it's like Xie Lian's always been oblivious towards romance, and he's slowly coming around. But him calling him calling him Zhao Hua, little flower. I'm sure Hua Cheng's like, little flower, you'll be thinking that. Like, yeah, oh my God, Xie Lian, he slays me. But beyond that, Anime Annie pointing out that the snow lotus slur that Qi Rong said that he insults Xie Lian with is actually referencing the symbolic yin energy of the snow lotus, which is quite feminine, which is a much more polite moniker than the dog effer that Qi Rong used against him earlier, right? So are Qi Rong and Pei Ming secretly forming the Hulian fan club? It seems like they are. It seems like unbeknowingly, both of them are kind of the sponsors of this fan club, which is kind of hilarious. Is it a fan club, or are they just trying to out them? It's funny either way. And then Xie Lian, according to Anime Annie, Xie Lian watching both Lang Ying and Qi Ying in the warehouse kind of had first-time babysitter vibes, according to Anime Annie. And that really got me thinking, you know, Xie Lian's not great with kids. He likes kids. He likes children. He's not great with them. He's kind of like Wei Wuxian. The only problem is Wei Wuxian and Mo Daozushi had Lan Wangji to fall back on, who was really good with kids. Hua Cheng is not good with kids either, so it's kind of a bad situation. But speaking of Mo Daozushi, Anime Annie pointed out that Qi Ying and Yin Yu's relationship, at least title-wise, is very similar to Zhang Cheng and Wei Wuxian and Mo Daozushi, whereas Zhang Cheng was the sect, you know, head, kind of like Yin Yu, and then Qi Ying and Wei Wuxian are kind of the sort of brotherly figures that they take under their wing and adopt into the family. Kind of one of those situations. That's what the similarity is. So I thought that was pretty interesting. But yeah, we have this Brocade Immortal that we've narrowed it down. We finally found the actual one. And then MXTX cuts off the chapter because of course she does. And so I've waited several days to find out what in the world's going to happen. Because now we have the 99th piece and it's the ghost and we believe it's the Brocade Immortal. So we are very certain that it is. Or at least that's what the cliffhanger would lead us to believe. So, but yeah. So I'm pretty excited, y'all. I can't wait to see what these 3 chapters will give us. But Volume 4 has been so much fun, and it's honestly, I love Volume 3, and up until the reveal of Heshan, up until that reveal, I was like, oh, Volume 3 is still my favorite, but I really like Volume 4. And then after that reveal, I was like, Volume 4 is really getting up there for me, so the story just gets better and better. But we also need to find out if Lang Ying is in fact Hua Cheng. If Hua Cheng is possessing Lang Ying or if Hua Cheng is posing as Lang Ying. Because all the clues were out there in the last set of chapters. So now we just need confirmation. So we're going to find that out and see what we get. But we're not going to waste any more time. We are going to start Heaven Officials Blessing chapters 132 to 134. And we are going to do that here in 3, 2, 1... and let's go. Chapter 192, the 99th Ghost Robe, Hiding in Danger. Hiding in danger, that's an interesting phrase. Xie Lian instantly shot to his feet. The Brocade Immortal? What? Naturally, the silhouette didn't respond and didn't move either, only standing there still. Xie Lian pressed his hands down on the shoulders of the other two and whispered, "Don't move." A moment later, a night breeze blew by, and that silhouette of a man seemed to have sighed before dispersing, gone with the wind. Oh, come on! Xie Lian abruptly stood up. Just then, outside the door of the textile house, there came a knocking sound. They all looked for it, and Xie Lian raised his voice. "Who is it?" The voice of a man rang from outside. "Your Highness, it's me." Xie Lian went over to open the door. Outside the textile house was a man with an open countenance, his form immaculate and chaste. He entered with his hands at his sides. Xie Lian was slightly bewildered. "Ling Wen! Why did you come by yourself?" Ling Wen fixed his sleeves. "Since I heard your Highness say things were difficult, I figured your typical heavenly officials wouldn't be able to assist. Thus, I've come to see things for myself. Greetings, your Highness Qi Ying. Why are you sitting on the ground? What's wrong? What's with that look?" It was Ling Wen in male form. Xie Lian walked to that cloth curtain and flipped it open, and sure enough, there was nothing behind it. A moment later, he turned his head. The Brocade Immortal showed itself. What? It should be it. I'm sure of it. It was a young man, very tall in height, maybe 2 inches taller than me. Judging by his bone structure, he must have been someone skilled in martial arts. I like that Xie Lian is such a sword nerd. He instantly knows that by someone's bone structure, they were probably good at martial arts, which will go back to the skeleton of the Earth Master they found in the temple not having that bone structure and not being a martial god. Ling Wen was somewhat doubtful. Your Highness, are you sure? In the past so many years, there's never been word that the Brocade Immortal has shown itself to anyone. Besides, didn't you say none of these 98 ghost robes were the real thing? Could it be someone in disguise and playing tricks? I'm afraid that's not possible. After that wave of chaos was over, to prevent ghost robes from sneaking out and harassing mortals, we shut the door and windows and set an array. Things inside couldn't get out, and things outside couldn't come in. There's only the 3 of us in the textile house, and no one is plotting anything. No one's plotting anything, Xie Lian. Humming for a moment, Ling Wen said, then the real thing must be operating under a special circumstance. Or what you saw was the silhouette of a vengeful spirit possessing one of the ghost robes. Lang Ying and Chan Yizhen were crouched on the ground, both spacing out. Xie Lian and Ling Wen assumed the appearance of adults. They stood with their arms crossed and were in serious discussion. That's such a great visual, like Lang Ying and Lang Ying, who's aka probably Hua Cheng, and Chan Yizhen just like, well, the adults are talking, and then Xie Lian and Ling Wen are just bubbling. Finally, Ling Wen suggested, why don't I take these ghost robes to the palace of Ling Wen and have my people examine them? If that won't work, we can make inquiries at the next meeting. I'm sure someone in the upper court is an expert. Ling Wen has been slightly suspicious, like, ever since Shi Wudu died. I don't know. There's just something is amiss with Ling Wen, and I can't put my finger on it, but something makes me suspicious of them, and I can't place it, but that's a weird thing for them just to show up, grab the robes that they've already tested to take with them. Giving the idea some thought, Xie Lian nodded. That's probably a good idea, but since this was a mission we were responsible for after all, I still want to be a little more thorough. Since the real Brocade Immortal is mixed in here, let me think of a few more ways to bring it out. If there's still no results by tomorrow, then I'll pass the 98 ghost robes to you. After all, this affair wasn't under the jurisdiction of the Palace of Ling Wen. There's no need for your Highness to be so polite, Ling Wen said. Oh, if you'll be sending them over tomorrow, it should be 101 pieces, right? Oh, why are there suddenly 3 more? You're suspicious of the robes we're wearing now. It's not impossible, Ling Wen said. Xie Lian lifted the corner of his cultivation robes, so worn that the threads were loose. I've worn this robe for several years now. It definitely wouldn't have issues. The one Lang Ying is wearing right now was newly bought, but he didn't obey my words, so it shouldn't be problematic either. He told Lang Ying not to work, but Lang Ying still chopped wood. He told him to stay home like a good boy, but Lang Ying still came out. However, Ling Wen shook his head. That's not what I meant. Your Highness, you may not be aware of this, but the essence of evil on the Brocade Immortal is strong, and since it's here, that essence would affect normal clothing. In any case, just to be safe, don't wear the clothes you have on anymore, and do something about them. Hearing this, Xie Lian quickly peeled the outer robes of both Lang Ying and Chan Yizhen. Don't wear this anymore. Don't wear this. Take it off. Take it off. Then I'll wrap up the clothes and bring them to the Palace of Ling Wen tomorrow. I'll send people to come pick them up? No need, no need. It's already embarrassing enough to trouble you with every time. Your palace is busy. I can handle this myself. The next day, Xie Lian arduously wrapped a huge pile of clothes and carried those large bundles by himself to ascend to the heavenly court. I just imagine Xie Lian with a big old bundle of like all these robes on his back, and he's just like traipsing up to the heavenly realm. Ling Wen had already been waiting for him in the palace for a long time. Today, it didn't seem as hectically bustling as before, with gods running back and forth. Xie Lian wrapped the large bundle of ghost robes. Colorful clothes burst out and spread around. He wiped the sweat at the corner of his forehead, and Ling Wen walked over leisurely. Have you made any discoveries? Much ashamed, it's been fruitless. I apologize in advance since there's no helping hands. It couldn't be helped if things are a bit scattered. There was so much chaos yesterday, I don't know if what I brought is all of the robes. I keep feeling like I'm missing 1 or 2 pieces, but I'm not sure. That's a non-issue, Ling Wen said. Then she looked. She's back in her female form, and roughly counted. There really are missing pieces. Your Highness, it seems the robes the little ghost next to you was wearing aren't included here? Oh, you're right. I remember now. Lang Ying had gotten used to draping that robe over himself, and I forgot to collect it. I'll go grab it right now. Oh, no rush. Take care, Your Highness. However, Xie Lian didn't move to leave. Instead, he stood still on the spot, his expression growing dim. Ling Wen was about to order for the heavenly officials under her command to come and take the ghost robes away when she turned around and saw he was still there with just 2 of them in the hall. She was puzzled. "Your Highness, do you have something else to say?" Xie Lian watched her with an unreadable expression. "Nothing much, only I was thinking, if I really did bring you the real Brocade Immortal, if I turned around, would you hide the real thing away?" "Your Highness? From the very beginning, I've had this inkling." "What of?" "Normal people, typical demons and ghosts, don't dare break into the Great Martial Temple. If someone was familiar with the Great Martial Hall enough to steal objects that were sealed away and still escape capture, then I'm afraid that other than Jun Wu himself, there's only you, Ling Wen Zhenjun. After all, the palace of Ling Wen roamed all the palaces day in and day out. It could be said to be more than familiar with everyone's domains." "Your Highness, your reasoning is a little too matter-of-fact. The person with the easiest access is the one who's most suspicious. Based on that train of thought, then wouldn't Jun Wu robbing himself be more likely?" "I must admit you're not wrong. But what made me start to think things suspicious was that half-maquillage woman." "What about the half-maquillage woman?" "She had in her possession the fake Brocade Immortal and just so happened to come to my door. How can things be so coincidental? Besides, it was like she might as well have written suspicious on her face. Like she was scared I wouldn't be suspicious of her being the culprit. Her intention was too obvious." "Oh, what intentions?" "Didn't she already say it herself? Exchange old for new. What she wanted was the old clothes in my Pucci shrine." In retrospect, when the Brocade Immortal was stolen, the Great Martial Hall found out extremely quickly. They immediately started investigating the moment they realized, therefore the thief might not dare keep it in their own hands and would instead hide it away first. Then where would be the best hiding place? Hide leaves among forests. If Xie Lian wanted to hide the Brocade Immortal, he would turn it into an extremely inconspicuous and normal-looking hemp robe and toss it in the mortal realm, but still keep an eye on it from afar. Normally, not many would want to buy such a coarsely made robe. However, the life Xie Lian led couldn't said to be normal, and he himself had been wearing the same worn-edged cultivation robe for the past several years. The money he could only afford such clothing. Besides, as long as the clothing kept him warm and was clean, that was all that he asked for, and he wasn't picky. In addition, he was the kind of person who possessed the incredible ability to pick out the most dangerous article of clothing in the big discount bin out of countless other pieces. Thus, in self-congratulating cheer at the major discount, he bought and brought home that legendary Brocade Immortal. Your Highness, what you're saying is a little too much now. You're from a martial god background after all. Thinking about it, you'd know that the half-maquillage woman would be instantly subdued by you if she approached your door. She wouldn't be able to take any robes away, old or new. She certainly couldn't take anything away. But who said she had to? If there were no further incidents, how would she be dealt with? If Xie Lian had thought that half-maquillage woman had in her hand the real Brocade Immortal, then he would for sure report her to Ling Wen, and then Ling Wen would likely descend herself. Like the day before, she would probably tell Xie Lian that for the sake of security, all the clothes need to be brought back to the palace of Ling Wen to be assessed. It really was too bad that Chan Yizhen was there too at the time, and it was unexpected that after only worn the Brocade Immortal once, he could directly determine the Brocade Immortal in the half-maquillage woman's hands was fake, which meant it was no longer easy nor logical for Ling Wen to take away all the clothes in the Pucci shrine. All of Xie Lian's information was provided by Ling Wen, and she could also make inquiries openly. Xie Lian's whereabouts and movements were fully in her grasp. When that half-maquillage woman was exposed, Ling Wen immediately sent Xie Lian new communication through the array and told him the Ghost City distributed many counterfeits in need of management, throwing new missions at him to give him no time to think too deeply about anything that might be questionable. I don't know if those counterfeits were distributed by you, but it was indeed you who provided me with information. With this step, you probably wanted to divert me away from the Pucci shrine before coming for Lang Ying. Yet unexpectedly, Lang Ying had also followed along and came out. I don't know if the Brocade Immortal showing himself so suddenly was within your scope of anticipation, but for you, thinking fast and changing course of action shouldn't be hard. With so many ghost robes, indiscernible as to whether they were real or fake, there would surely be a chance to slip the real Brocade Immortal away amidst the chaos. And with the Brocade Immortal showing itself, Ling Wen could also use it as an excuse to appear personally. openly confiscating all clothing on site. As for how things would be assessed, how the real thing was to be determined, and the explanation of that silhouette, it would all fall to Ling Wen. Having listened to this point, Ling Wen made a pause, hand gesture. Your Highness, please, stop right there. So you believe that Lang Ying, that's his name, right? You think that the robe he was wearing was the Brocade Immortal. Don't forget, once he put it on, he still didn't obey your every order, am I wrong? You said so yourself. You have to know the Brocade Immortal's powers are extremely strong, and even a ghost king is no exception if you were to run into it. Xie Lian replied, you also said it must be operating under a special circumstance. As for what exactly the special circumstance may be, I'm sure you're more well informed on that subject. Pray tell, you can answer that question for me. Ling Wen frowned slightly and clenched her fists. She said softly, Your Highness, does this mean you've deemed me a thief? Pardon my honesty, but this makes me somewhat displeased. Xie Lian inclined his head slightly. I apologize. Apology accepted. However, Your Highness, if you must be adamant about this, you may well be as long as you have the evidence. After all, this has been nothing but speculation. Before today, I didn't have any evidence. In fact, I didn't have anything before stepping into the palace of Ling Wen. But I've gotten it since we started this conversation. Please. The evidence is, just now, you never bothered to count the exact number of ghost robes. Ling Wen's expression barely changed, but her eyebrows seemed to stiffen slightly. The number of ghost robes I've brought was indeed lacking, but it wasn't just the one missing. In fact, I've only brought 88 pieces. A total of 10 robes are missing. Every piece of clothing I considered suspicious I kept and didn't bring over. You never thought the count was off, yet with one glance, you noticed the one Lang Ying was wearing wasn't here. So pray tell, how did you know it was that particular one that was missing? Please wait. Without hurry, she recounted all the ghost robes on the ground more and discovered it was indeed 88 pieces of clothing. Maintaining her impassive tone, she replied, I suppose you can say no one is perfect, and there's always something that is going to be overlooked. Very well, Xie Lian said. Since you've counted seriously this time and should have looked over every single piece, then let me ask you something. Did you not notice? The robe Lang Ying wore yesterday was among those 88 robes. Your Highness, what are you trying to say? Xie Lian crouched down and pulled out a robe from the pile of random clothing. Shaking it open, it was a plain white hemp robe. The one Lang Ying wore yesterday was this one. Isn't it right here? How come you didn't notice it when you were counting just now? Your Highness should also know that there's nothing special about this hemp robe, so you can't blame me for not recognizing it with a glance. It really is nothing to write home about, Xie Lian said. Then you, Ling Wen Zhenjun, who is so competent and reliable, hardworking and cautious, why would you say so rashly that such an inconspicuous robe was missing when you had fully counted? Ling Wen smiled and did not falter. There are too many robes. My eyes glazed over. Scrolls are piled high like mountains. I'm overwhelmed. Your eyes didn't glaze over. It's the opposite. Xie Lian said, your eyes are too sharp. Let me tell you a second thing. I didn't actually bring the robe Lang Ying wore yesterday. The one in my hand right now is another one I replicated based on the original one, but I was careful with the details in this replica. So how were you able to tell with just one look that the real one Lang Ying wore isn't here? Fake or not, either way, I didn't see it. Your Highness, have you worked too hard on cases, and do you always think too much? Why would you spend all this effort in creating a replica? Xie Lian lifted the white hemp robe and said softly, this hemp robe was but a random one I pulled from the pile. What replica based on the original, or careful with the details? It's all nonsense I made up just now. As you said, why would I waste my time making a replica? You've been tricked. This isn't even the same color of the robe that Lang Ying wore yesterday, but I questioned you holding it in front of you, and you never once did think it strange? Ling Wen, right now, I only need you to answer a very simple question. What was the color of the robe Lang Ying wore yesterday? The white hemp robe fell to the ground. Xie Lian said, as the esteemed #1 civil god, countless thousands of scrolls detailing the matters of the upper court all passed through your hands. Your memory shouldn't be this bad. How come you can't even recall the color of the robe Lang Ying wore yesterday? You can't answer because you're guarded against my potential trickery. You daren't answer so easily because you never knew what color it was in the first place. Because yesterday, what you saw him wear was only a headless, sleeveless, ragged sack. He enunciated every word. The Brocade Immortal takes on thousands of forms, but there's no doubt nothing more than an illusionment spell. However, no matter how powerful that illusionment spell is, it will always be ineffective on one individual, the one who created it. No matter what shape it takes on, in the eyes of the creator, it will always show its true form. Earlier, you glanced through those 88 ghost robes and didn't see a strange, headless, sleeveless cloth sack. So, of course, you were able to determine immediately the Brocade Immortal wasn't in the pile. What? What? Seen through the Ghost King. Play the Ghost King. What the fudge? At first, he had only planned on keeping the suspicious ghost robes and thoroughly examining them again himself. But he hadn't realized that Ling Wen's one offhand comment, he would catch this huge fault in her lies. The moment Xie Lian wrapped his head around it, he went with the flow and tricked her the entire way. In the end, he actually blew apart Ling Wen's armor. Ling Wen stood there frozen. Of course, you can deny all this, but it'd be easy to prove whether it's real or fake. Once I present that robe to the Great Martial Hall and then have it change its form before the Heavenly Emperor and ask whether you can describe what it looks like, everything will be clear. When that Brocade Immortal roamed the mortal realm, it had sucked the blood of over 500 people. It was an object of great evil. If Ling Wen had only broken into the Great Martial Temple to steal the brocade robe and hadn't had the chance to use it to harm anyone, then it wasn't a crime so great that it couldn't be forgiven. However, Ling Wen was first appointed as a deputy general before she ascended. The earliest stories of the Brocade Immortal first surfaced considerably after Ling Wen's tenure as deputy general, which meant this was after Ling Wen had taken up her duties in the heavenly realm, and she created the Brocade Immortal as a heavenly official. A heavenly official whose duty was to protect mortals had seduced and murdered a mortal. This should already call for severe sentence. The mortal who was seduced and murdered was also a future heavenly official. Alas, this affair would not be so forgivingly handled. Ling Wen sighed. Your Highness, you really are. After a pause, she said, maybe it's just my bad luck that this mission was given to you. Although there's only 2 of us here in Ling Wen Hall today, and we've got centuries of friendship between us, I think if I pleaded for you to keep your eyes closed on this based on our many years of friendship, you probably wouldn't agree to it. You would instead encourage me to turn myself into the Great Martial Hall. Am I right? Xie Lian sighed too. Although he and Ling Wen had known each other for centuries, it had always been a pure business, and they had never become closer. Their relationship wasn't bad. Even when he ascended for the 3rd time, while everyone taunted him as the rubbish god, Ling Wen never looked down on him. On the contrary, she had given him even more assistance and took care of him. But this Brocade Immortal mission just had to land on his head. Once the truth was revealed, while it was hard to report it, it was even more impossible not to report it. Xie Lian replied earnestly, my luck is bad too. Ling Wen crossed her arms and shook her head. Your Highness, someone like you, sometimes you're smart, but sometimes you're also not very smart. Sometimes you're soft-hearted, but sometimes you're cold-hearted too. After a pause, she asked, so where's the robe now? It's in my possession, Xie Lian said. After we're done here, I'll personally deliver it to the Great Martial Hall. Ling Wen nodded, seemingly having nothing more to say. So can you tell me, how come when Lang Ying wore the Brocade Immortal, its effects didn't work? I can probably guess, Ling Wen said. But if your Highness wants to know the answer, will you first agree to a request? What is it? Will you let me see it? The Brocade Immortal. I only need 1 day's time. After all, if I'm to turn myself into the Great Martial Hall, there may not be any opportunities to see it afterwards. Don't be mistaken, I'm not going to do anything. It's just, yesterday when you said it showed itself, I was shocked. She shook her head, her eyes unfocused. It's been so many years, yet I have never seen Bai Jing again. So the name of the young warrior was Bai Jing. Oh, yes, but some people call him Zhao Bai. Zhao Bai. That sounds like they were calling a dog, or like they were calling an idiot. Bai Jing means white brocade. The word white also means blank. Zhao Bai, or little white, is like a pet name, like Spot. Bai Chi, or the one who is blank in the mind, means idiot. Lang Wen chuckled. It's the meaning you're thinking of. I gave him the name Baijing. No one ever calls him that, so not many knew his name, but if you call him by that name, he'll be happy. In the legend of the Brocade Immortal, the way the girl that young man loved treated him only made one think of her cruel and horrid. If there wasn't any bone-deep hatred, then it was pure cold-bloodedness. Yet when Ling Wen talked to that young man, her tone was friendly. There was neither affection nor hatred. So will you? If your highness is worried I'll run away, you can have Ruyi bind me. I'm not a martial god, I won't be able to escape. For some reason, Xie Lian felt he should trust Ling Wen. After humming a moment, he nodded his head slowly. Very well. The two left the palace of Ling Wen like nothing was the matter. When they strolled down the Great Martial Avenue, they still greeted the other passing heavenly officials as usual. Ling Wen looked the same as always, not giving away that the hands in her sleeves were tied firmly by Ruyi. They didn't get very far when they bumped into Pei Ming, who had just returned from his street patrol. The two greeted each other, standing on the side of the road making perfunctory greetings and snide comments. Pei Ming stared at Xie Lian the entire time, and Xie Lian was slightly alarmed. Why is General Pei looking at me like that? Pei Ming rubbed his chin and replied earnestly, I'm not going to lie, Your Highness. Every time I see you now, I feel anxious and my body tenses, like whoever walks next to you will have something happen to them. Ah! Oh, so when I see you walking with Ling Wen, my heart quickened. Ling Wen, you best be careful for the next little while. Ah! Ling Wen laughed. Well, how can that be, General Pei? You just stopped joking. Xie Lian, however, didn't know whether to laugh or to cry. On some level, Pei Ming's instincts were quite accurate. Once back, from afar, as they approached the Puchi shrine, they could see Lang Ying was leaning against the old tree in front of the shrine. His left hand was playfully spinning the broom without care, and a mound of fallen golden leaves was piled next to his feet. Like the little temple, the golden leaves that were in a pile, in the talus. Xie Lian squinted and watched him for a good while, before putting weight into his steps to purposely make himself heard. Lang Ying didn't look back, but he must have noticed their presence, and very naturally changed his pose. He continued to sweep before turning around and acting like he only just saw Ling Wen and Xie Lian approach. Sweeping again? Lang Ying nodded. Seeing him like this, Xie Lian couldn't hold back, and he patted his head like an elder would and praised, What a good child! Lang Ying accepted the gesture simply. Ling Wen watched them without comment, and Xie Lian led her as they opened the door to the Puchi shrine. It's in here. Yet unexpectedly, the moment he'd opened the door, he saw a figure crouched in front of the donation box. Once again, sneakily stuffing gold bars in. Xie Lian quickly ran up to drag him away. Qi Ying, stop stuffing it. It's really enough. I haven't even taken out the ones you stuffed in there last time. It's all stuck. Greetings, Your Highness, Qi Ying. Hi. There was a wooden rack standing in the center of the Puchi shrine, and upon the rack there was a huge plain hemp robe. Of course, that was what only Xie Lian saw. Ling Wen approached and looked at it solemnly for a while, but that robe did not react. She turned her head slightly. My lords, I want to look at it alone. Is that all right? That's fine, Xie Lian said. Ruyi had her hands bound, and she wasn't a martial god, so reasonably, she couldn't try anything. Xie Lian wasn't that worried, and he laid a hand on Chuan Yizhen's shoulders. Let's go out. At least, this case was considered closed, and Xie Lian could relax. It just so happened that the neighbors had gifted him a batch of fruits and vegetables, so Xie Lian took them to the kitchen ready to cook. This is what they called an undefeated spirit. After so many days, Chuan Yizhen seemed to have taken his Puchi shrine as some sort of happy farm. And he was always leaping up and down, sometimes climbing trees, sometimes stealing squash, sometimes snagging fish, sometimes catching frogs. In a moment of Xie Lian's carelessness, Chuan Yizhen snuck into the kitchen and swiped a yam. Feeling the spot empty on the counter, Xie Lian turned his head and saw Chuan Yizhen, who had the yam dangling from his mouth, slipping out of the kitchen and hurrying away like a fish who had escaped the net. Xie Lian cried, It's not cooked yet, don't eat it! Yet it was precisely because it wasn't cooked that it had to be eaten quickly. Once Xie Lian had cooked it, it wouldn't be edible anymore. Xie Lian shook his head, and then he saw Lang Ying walking over. His eyes turned crescent. Lang Ying, are you free? Come help me chop some vegetables. Lang Ying was just about to snatch back that yam that Chuan Yizhen had snagged, but hearing Xie Lian's charge, he came over to help without a second thought. He picked up a butcher knife on the cutting board, pressing down the cabbage, and started cutting it chop by chop, taking his task very seriously. Xie Lian watched him and then turned his head over to watch the rice as he chatted. Lang Ying, you've seen quite a number of gods and ghosts that have come to our little Puchi shrine now, right? Each of them more bizarre than the next. Lang Ying answered from behind him. He continued, Then let me ask you, if you had to pick, who among those gods and Ghost is the handsomest. Lang Ying was chopping the vegetables wordlessly, seeming to be thinking hard. Xie Lian raised his brows slightly. Tell me, just say whatever the truth is in your mind. You. Besides me. The one in red. Xie Lian was going to burst a gut from trying to contain his laughter. He responded with a serious voice. I think so too. After a pause, Xie Lian asked, then who do you think is the strongest? Lang Ying still answered with, the one in red. Who's the richest? The one in red. Who do you admire the most? The one in red. Who's the dumbest? The one in green. Those questions were coming one after another without pause, but he was actually able to change his answers in time, which spoke for the speed of his mind and his reactions. Xie Lian commented, it seems like you quite like that Gege dressed in red. His name is Hua Cheng. Do remember it. So does this mean that you think he's a very good person? Unwittingly, the chopping of the knife in Lang Ying's hand seemed to have sped a little. Very good. Then once we're free, do you think we should invite him over as a guest again? Of course, it's a must. I think so too. But his subordinate says he's very busy lately, so he must be very busy doing some very serious things. I think it's best if we don't go disturb him. After that moment, the crunching sound of Lang Ying chopping vegetables suddenly became more heavy-handed. Xie Lian held on to the edge of the stove to support himself, his guts spraining from holding back his laughter. Suddenly, Chan Yijin poked a head from the window. He took a bite of the yam and swept a look over the kitchen. Then he said to Lang Ying, you've chopped it to shreds. It won't taste good anymore. Oh, what did you say? Xie Lian turned his head to look. The cabbage wasn't just shredded. It was nothing but tiny scraps at this point. He cleared his throat softly. My gosh, your knife work is really bad. Throwing all sorts of seasonings into the pot, Xie Lian clapped his hands aside to let it all simmer for 2 hours and left the kitchen. He glanced at Ling Wen. She was still properly in the shrine, so he continued to do his chores. From the pile of logs, he fumbled out a larger piece of a plank, borrowed a brush and ink from the village's head house, and sat in front of the door, one hand holding the plank and the other holding the brush, lost in thought. Lang Ying walked over too, and Xie Lian looked up. Lang Ying, can you read? Do you know how to write? I do. Then how's your writing? Xie Lian asked. Mediocre. Lang Ying replied, oh, that's all right, as long as it's legible. Come, give me a hand. Is he trying to flush him out? He passed the plank and brush over to Lang Ying and smiled. Our shrine doesn't have an establishment plaque. How about you write one up for me? Under Xie Lian's urging, Lang Ying picked up the brush. That little brush in his hand seemed to weigh 1,000 tons, unable to be moved no matter what. Finally, a moment later, he seemed to have conceded defeat, and he put down the brush and plank. A helpless voice sounded from behind the bandages. Gege, I'm wrong. That voice didn't belong to Lang Ying at all. It was clearly Hua Cheng, only it was more crisp than normal, the sound of a boy. Xie Lian was leaning against the wall on the side with his arms crossed, and having watched him struggle for so long and finally surrendered, he couldn't hold back anymore. He dropped to the ground laughing. San Long really is so busy! Ah! Yes! Okay, I'm glad he knows. I'm glad he was suspect, and I'm glad that he was just using it to drag him out. Oh my god. Oh my god. At first, Xie Lian had missed him dearly, since they hadn't seen each other for a long time, even though this long time was nothing more than a few days. Oh my god. Yet who knew that Hua Cheng had always been right by his side, hiding. Suddenly, Xie Lian's mood brightened. All of his previous worries and anxieties completely forgotten. He was laughing so hard he was having trouble getting up. Gege, you played me, Hua Cheng accused. Oh, don't turn this on me. San Long played me first. Let me guess. You've been around since I broke the stove, right? Ah, that's indeed the case. Gege, how did you know? You're so amazing. What? Amazing? So long. If you want to disguise yourself as someone else, don't be so lazy. It'd be more amazing if I couldn't tell. And here I thought there was a second person who could eat. But who's the handsomest? Who's the strongest? Who's the richest? Who's the one I admire the most? Gege, please forget that ever happened. No, I'll remember this forever. Hua Cheng said woefully, Gege, although I'm happy you're so happy, but is it really that funny? Xie Lian hugged his belly. Of course. Only having met you did I rediscover that it's such a simple thing to be happy. Hearing this, Hua Cheng blinked. Xie Lian's laughter quieted a bit, realizing what he just said was a little too revealing. Now they'd calmed down, even though he thought it was a little sappy. Clearing his throat, he rubbed the corner of his eyes and forced himself to school his own expression. All right, enough playing around. Now where's the real Lang Ying? Why are you disguised as him? Bring him back now. I've temporarily sent him to the ghost city as a guest. Since it was Hua Cheng who took him away, Xie Lian wasn't worried at all. He nodded and was about to speak again when the wooden door creaked open. Ling Wen walked out from within the Puchi shrine with her hands at her sides. Oh, Your Highness. Hua Cheng had no intention of revealing his identity, so Xie Lian didn't mention it either, pretending he was still Lang Ying in front of others. Seeing Ling Wen's solemn expression, Xie Lian unconsciously became serious too, his smile completely gone. What is it? The Brocade... Is something wrong with Bai Yijing? No, there's nothing wrong with him. It's just that there seems to be a weird smell coming from the kitchen. Is Your Highness cooking something? Oh, I am cooking! After some thought, Ling Wen used a courteous tone to say very discourteously, Please clean it away, Your Highness. Whatever you're cooking, it's probably ruined by now. 2 hours later, the evening had come. Inside the Puchi shrine at the altar table, Hua Cheng, Ling Wen, and Chan Yizhen sat around the little wooden table in a circle. Xie Lian brought out a pot from the kitchen and laid it on the table. The moment he opened the cover and revealed the many snow-white, cute, round, and smooth little meatballs sitting sagely in the pot. Didn't you stew with water? Why did it turn into meatballs? Chan Yizhen demanded. Xie Lian introduced it thusly. The dish is called the Incorruptible Chastity Meatballs. Clean as jade, clear as ice, an idiom that means incorruptible chastity. It's usually an idiom used to describe girls. Xie Lian is using the idiom's imagery to describe his cute little meatballs. Didn't you, Xie Lian, didn't you stew the meatballs? Stew with water. Why did it turn to meatballs? He demanded again. Xie Lian continued his presentation. Because kneading meatballs requires delicate strength. Not too hard, not too light, and a lot of time and effort went into this. Didn't you stew with water? Why did it turn into meatballs? Since Chan Yizhen really was too relentless, Xie Lian explained warmly, I did use water to stew. You're right. But because there was a little problem with controlling the fire and time, the entire pot was boiled dry, so I added new seasonings and made meatballs instead. Hearing this, Ling Wen praised wholeheartedly, Your Highness truly thinks outside the box, incomparable in all of history. This servant is steeped in deep respect. Thank you, your praise is too high. It's not, Ling Wen said. At least I believe there will definitely not be another in history who can create a dish called the Incorruptible Chastity Meatballs. Xie Lian passed the chopstick around. Who knows? Everyone, please! Ling Wen and Chan Yizhen took the chopsticks with their right hand, and their left reached for the cold bun sitting at the edge of the table at the same time. Only Hua Cheng reached for an Incorruptible Chastity meatball, delivering it into his own mouth. After a moment, he remarked, Pretty good. Seeing this, Chan Yizhen's eyes widened. Hua Cheng then added, The flavor's a bit light. Okay, duly noted, Xie Lian said, watching with wide eyes as a boy covered in bandages next to him ate several glowing, smooth like cement meatballs and gave such sincere feedback. Chan Yizhen seemed to be completely persuaded. After some thought, he also reached for a meatball. Xie Lian maintained a smile. He smiled and watched Chan Yizhen swallow it. He smiled as Chan Yizhen's face turned pale. He smiled as Chan Yizhen fell to the ground, unable to get back up. Xie Lian continued smiling and he asked, Is something the matter? Hua Cheng answered he probably ate too fast and choked. Ling Wen grinned. Just then Xie Lian heard a familiar voice ring in his ear. Gege. It wasn't the mumbling voice of Lang Ying, and it wasn't the crisp and lazy voice of boy Hua Cheng either, but the voice of the usual Hua Cheng. He was speaking to Xie Lian through their private communication array. Xie Lian raised his lashes slightly and responded, What is it? Ling Wen is someone cruel and cunning, heartless and merciless. Now that you've brought her back, things might not end so easily. This was the first time Xie Lian had ever heard anyone make such comments about Ling Wen. After some pondering, he replied, It seems to me she harbors some goodwill towards that Brocade Immortal. That shouldn't be false. Harboring goodwill and being merciless don't conflict. She's the #1 civil god in the heavens. Her eyes and ears are everywhere. Her arms are far-reaching. Gege needs to guard against her looking for helpers. General Pei? Xie Lian asked. Shouldn't be him, Hua Cheng replied. If the water tyrant was still around, then she would definitely ask for his assistance to suppress the matter, as she would do always aids based on acquaintance and not reason. But if it was Pei Ming, as long as you tell him the truth of everything, he might not choose to aid corruption. Gege, be careful. All right, I'll be careful, Xie Lian said. Good thing a day goes by fast. However, Hua Cheng's voice in his ear was dark. No, Gege, you've misunderstood. I'm telling you to be careful of something else. Someone's here. Just then, a series of clinking, crisp sound of bells entered Xie Lian's ears. Hua Cheng frowned slightly. Xie Lian looked through the cracks of the window and saw a middle-aged cultivator with a bell in his hand, swaying as he approached the entrance to the Puchi shrine. The cultivator was wearing a luxurious cultivation robe. A treasure chest was carried on his back, and the chest was covered with yellow charms. The bell rang as he walked. Xie Lian had an eye for these things, and he recognized it was a good tool. If there were any normal monsters and demons about, their heads would throb when they heard the sound of that bell, and they would steer clear. Before the cultivator got close, a few other large, white-browed, and yellow-robed monks joined him with staffs in their hands. Soon, a crowd of 50 to 60 gathered, as if they'd all planned this meeting. Unsurprised to see one another present, they surrounded the Puchi shrine. That crowd wasn't just for show. Their bodies were hung with various spiritual tools. Their hands and feet were steady, very obviously skilled. Heavenly officials took spiritual power from the offerings of their worshippers, and some cultivators and monks could also receive spiritual power from the heavenly officials they worshipped. These monks and cultivators might even possess greater spiritual powers than Xie Lian, a heavenly official. To have so many come all of a sudden, it couldn't herald anything good. Xie Lian knitted his brows slightly, sensing the newcomers didn't come in peace. Hua Cheng put down his bowl and chopsticks and rose to his feet. Xie Lian heard his in the private communication array. Old monks and foul cultivators dare chase me all the way here. I'm sorry to have brought you troubles to your door, Gege. I'll go divert them away. Xie Lian grabbed him. Don't move. What's going on? Xie Lian spoke to Hua Cheng through the private communication array. Don't go. Tell me honestly. Is the reopening of Mount Tonglu really affecting you? No, Hua Cheng replied. Xie Lian stared at the eyes behind the bandages intently. Stop lying. You're a supreme ghost king. You previously had no need to be afraid of mortals like them. Why wouldn't you just beat them down and chase them away directly, and would rather divert them away? You weren't playing a prank in changing to this form, am I right? With the reopening of Mount Tonglu, the stronger the ghost or demon, the more they felt its effects. The first time the ghosts were aroused, Xie Lian had witnessed with his own eyes just how much misery Hua Cheng had suffered. And as the date of the reopening of the gates approached, the tremors would only grow. Under these circumstances, if it wasn't Xie Lian himself, he would choose to temporarily seal his own true form and transform into a small creature, store his spiritual powers, and avoid going berserk, waiting for it all to be over before removing the seal. Thus, although this could avoid the torment of aggravation, because his powers were sealed, it gave others the opportunity to ambush him. Xie Lian cursed Qi Rong Yu. That night, Qi Rong had threatened that he was going to bring forth all the cultivators and monks that were aggrieved against Hua Cheng, but he hadn't imagined that it wasn't just a bluff. Hua Cheng shook his head lightly. Gege, they're only here for me. It'll be fine once I'm gone. Although in my current form I can't kill them with just a wave of my hand, I can at least make them get lost. Xie Lian threatened, if you leave now, don't ever come back to see me again. Your Highness, Hua Cheng cried. Hua Cheng had always been carefree but meticulously minded. In the past, he had helped Xie Lian multiple times, and now Xie Lian finally had the chance to help him. How could he possibly allow Hua Cheng to leave by himself? Xie Lian said darkly, sit down. I'll go meet with them. Chuan Yizhen opened his eyes with great difficulty and asked while in the haze, did someone come? Do you need me to beat them down? His voice was hoarse. Xie Lian helped close his eyes. Qi Ying, you just keep lying there. Also, you can't beat mortals like that. It'll cost you merits. Xie Lian pressed himself against the wooden door to listen for any movement outside. Some villagers who had just only finished their work for the day were still out and about and hadn't come home for dinner. They were surprised to see so many cultivators and monks so suddenly. They asked, what are all the masters doing gathered here? Are they all here for Zhe Daozhong? A monk filled with murderous intent clapped his hands together in prayer. Amitabha Buddha? Dear donor, did you all know this place has been invaded by wicked creatures? Wicked creatures? What kind of wicked creatures? A one-of-a-kind ghost king who brings chaos to the world. Oh, what should we do? The cultivator dressed in luxurious robes, who was the first to arrive, said, leave it to us. Today, all of us who walk the same path are gathered here for this reason, the chance of a lifetime to capture that evil thing. Then he was about to walk up to the village head. When he pushed him back, the cultivator glared. Who are you? What are you doing? Masters, I'm the head of this village. We're very thankful you're all here, but to tell the truth, you all look very expensive. The luxuriously dressed cultivator said, we've come to defeat evil. Did you think we're here for rewards? Then he was about to charge ahead, but the villagers all stopped them again. The monks and cultivators were growing irritated, but they couldn't forcefully break people up either, so they demanded impatiently, what now? Well, if it's free, then that's great. Thank the masters for coming here to defeat evil with benevolent hearts, but it's just work here in this village is all taken care of by Xie Daozhong. It's hard on me as a village head if the masters here were to rob Xie Daozhong's work. Xie Daozhong? Thus they gathered around to discuss. Was there any well-known, capable cultivation house with the name Xie in this trade? Doesn't seem like it. Either way, I've never heard of him. Probably some nobody. If we haven't, then he's not well known. Forget it. After their discussion, the luxuriously dressed cultivator turned back around. This Xie Daozhong you speak of, is he the only one living this place? Yeah. Xie Daozhong, your fellow tradesmen are here. There's so many of them. Are you home? A yellow-robed old monk put his hands together in prayer. Amitabha Buddha, it doesn't matter if Xie Daozhong is here. That wicked creature is hiding in this house right now. What? Just then, Xie Lian pushed open the door and came out leisurely. I'm here! What's going on, everybody? The villagers immediately exclaimed, Daozhong, these eminent monks and cultivators all say that in your house there's a ghost. Oh, you can tell? What a fast admittance. That's right, there really is a ghost. That luxuriously dressed cultivator caught the pot and was delighted at first, but when he opened it, his smile collapsed. A half-maquillage woman. He tossed the pot back, looking very displeased. Don't play pretend, my friend. A vulgar monster like this can't even be considered a malice. You know exactly what we're referring to. Xie Lian caught the pot and felt the strength of the man's throw wasn't weak. Definitely someone who had cultivated arduously for years, and someone considerable. A number of monks said to the luxuriously dressed cultivator, Daozhong, this cultivator looks to be bursting with the essence of evil from his body. Could he maybe be? Whether he is or not, I, heaven's eye, can tell with but a look. Then he gave a loud shout, bit his finger, and drew a line on his forehead. A seeming third eye grew on his face. Seeing his skill, Xie Lian also praised mentally, and then he leaned against the door, admiring his performance. The luxuriously dressed cultivator glared and stared at him intently for a moment. I knew it. There's an essence of evil. Such a heavy essence of evil. Ghost King, you did change face after all. Xie Lian was stunned. How could he, an esteemed, titled heavenly official, have essence of evil on him? He was just thinking this man might have some skill, but how did he turn around and start spewing nonsense so quickly? Hearing him, the 50 to 60 masters in gathering all looked around like they were about to face a great enemy, each of them stuck in a fighting stance. Hua Cheng said to Xie Lian in the private communication array, These people are so annoying. It's fine, it's all right, you just sit, Xie Lian replied. A moment later, the luxuriously dressed cultivator spoke up again, but in a confused tone. Oh, that's not right. What's not right? He rubbed the blood mark on his forehead. This is weird. I'm looking at this man, but he's sometimes covered in the essence of evil, sometimes glowing with spiritual light, and sometimes dim and listless. This is weird. How can that be, Daozhong? Can you really do this? If you can't, let us handle this. How can he be that strange? The luxuriously dressed cultivator said angrily, What? Think I can't do this? If I can't, you think you can? I, heaven's eye, have been running in the trade for many years. I've rarely gotten anything wrong. Xie Lian rubbed his forehead and shook his head and asked, Then why don't you take a look and tell me what part of me has the strongest essence of evil? He rubbed his forehead and after looking for a moment exclaimed, Your lips! Ah! Oh, damn it! No! Ah! No! Oh, come on! Oh, no! Oh, well. Shouldn't be surprised. Ah! We just got, not all the answers, but a lot of answers, and then out of nowhere, there's a Ling Wen reveal that Ling Wen created the Brocade Immortal? What? Man, my gut was telling me, as I've been reading the last several chapters with ever since the start of the Brocade Immortal, there's been a gut feeling. I'm like, why is this so weird? Why do I feel weird about Ling Wen? Ling Wen's been weird this whole time. What the hell's happening? So, What? What is happening? I don't know. And my dog is like, play with me. So Ling Wen, what is with all these characters surrounding Xie Lian and having bad things happen to them, with the exception of Qi Ying? Qi Ying seems to be doing all right. Except for, like, his cooking. That's been the only bad thing that's happened to Qi Ying. What the hell? So, I did not walk into... thank you all for not spoiling me. Because I did not walk into this chapter set thinking, oh, we're going to have a big major reveal that Ling Wen created a dark, evil device and has been attempting to steal it and possibly, like, confiscate it. And then, what? I did not walk into this. Did not walk into that thinking that was going to be a thing that happened. Not at all. No. So we're going to write down this whole thing about the Brocade Immortal, right? We're going to put the Brocade Immortal up here and talk about its whole deal, that apparently the dumb guy, the dumb soldier that was killed by the Brocade Immortal, that Ling Wen knew them. And maybe possibly had, like, relations with them. We don't know. We don't know the full story, right? It's so funny that Ling Wen had been telling Xie Lian the story about the Brocade Immortal, but maybe there was a misunderstanding. Maybe there's parts that didn't quite add up. It was like, of course, that's what Ling Wen was telling him, deliberately saying, well, you don't know the full story, but I can't tell you because that'll out myself as part of the story. Like, Ling Wen did not want to be part of the narrative. And I'm like, what the hell? So there's that going on. And then meanwhile, we're going to put a Hua Cheng up here. Hua Cheng, a.k.a. Lang Ying, up here. And that whole debacle. Oh my God. Well, but you know what this means? Okay, so Xie Lian has been trying to convince Hua Cheng that the night in the Thousand Light Temple, they had a fight, and everybody on Discord has been like, yeah, between their tongues for dominance. And Xie Lian's been like, no, we weren't doing any funny business. We just had a fight. It was just a little scuffle, no problem. And now the monks that Qi Rong has led, the mob that Qi Rong has Gastoned their way here, is now, like, convinced that Xie Lian has the essence of evil on his lips. And I'm like, the implications, because even if Ling Wen doesn't get it, even if Ling Wen and Qi Ying don't understand the whole essence of evil on Xie Lian's lips, they don't get what that is about, Hua Cheng will know. Because he's like, well, wait a minute. Why would you, what happened, by fight, what do you mean what happened? So Xie Lian's going to have to tell him they made out. He's going to tell him what happened. And it's going to be ridiculous. And we have one chapter left of this volume. We did get a picture with this one, which is nice. I love this picture a lot. It's of Ling Wen sitting there. Ling Wen is sitting there with Hua Cheng as Lang Ying, and then poor Qi Ying is, like, passed out there after eating the meatballs that are amazing, the concrete meatballs. I also love that Xie Lian is just casually sitting so close to Hua Cheng as Lang Ying. Yeah, just so casually sitting there. We need to talk about these chapters. These were 3 very distinct chapters that had a lot going on. There was a lot of dialogue. Xie Lian is just like, Xie Lian's becoming the mastermind of just outing people's corruption. Xie Lian is like on the task force. I'm like ready for a cop AU where Xie Lian's like a detective that's just outing all the corruption within the police precinct. And Hua Cheng is like the bad boy leather jacket wearing former criminal that's like on parole. I need it. I need this AU in my life, please. But yeah, so Xie Lian, there ain't gonna be any heavenly officials left in the heavenly official realm if Xie Lian keeps outing all the corruption involved around them. There's not gonna be any left. Hua Cheng's defense of Pei Ming is interesting in this chapter set, which we'll bring up eventually. Pei Ming may be like the last one with Junwoo, but there's a lot going on that I'm kind of like, at this point, we're revealing like all this corruption, everything going awry. And I'm like, Junwoo, what we doing? So I'm like, okay, we're going to go through this. But there's just so much happening. And I was just kind of floored. The Ling Wen thing, I thought she was being suspicious, but I thought maybe she was hiding information from Xie Lian, which she was, and maybe wanted something to do with Lang Ying, which she did. But I had no clue that the Brocade Immortal would be something created by Ling Wen. Oh, the fudge, what? So Ling Wen just shows up randomly. We have this thing where Xie Lian notices the Brocade Immortal and the silhouette's just standing there, and he tells him not to pass by, and the silhouette just kind of like disperses into the wind, and Xie Lian's like, damn it. So we find out with the Brocade Immortal. So the backstory was that a girl gave the device to Bai Jing. I could only think of Bai Wusheng the whole time this was going on. I was like, because Bai means white. So that makes sense, the white calamity. So gave the device to Bai Zhang, which killed him, and then became this evil device. So we are led to believe that the girl that made the device, that had the affection for Bai Jing, was Ling Wen. We're led to believe that that's the case. And did they like Bai Jing? We don't know that. And the way that Xie Lian describes it is that her affection is she didn't really have any affection or friendliness. It was just a concern or an interest in Bai Jing. But we do know that, we do find out that devices are always seen in their true form by the creator. Which is interesting. That sets up a kind of neat precedent that there could be other devices that are created that are viewed by others differently than the creator themselves. That's rather interesting. I like that, kind of like, in the eye of the beholder, you see the true form of something, whereas others see it a different way. That's interesting. But yeah. But Ling Wen suspiciously instantly shows up, which was like sending off red flag radar. Like, why did you instantly come when things... And it wasn't just that. That part wasn't nearly as suspicious as Ling Wen saying, like, that it could be the ghosts playing tricks. And Xie Lian's like, well, no, like Lang Ying and them wouldn't play tricks. I like that Xie Lian is so assured of his trust in these ghosts. I mean, Qi Ying has seemed pretty trustworthy up until this point. Qi Ying is very simple, seemingly. But Xie Lian has trusted Lang Ying. I love that people in the Discord were saying, like, Sun Long, Hua Cheng is like, he's, like, defeated 33 ghosts, like, defeated 33 heavenly officials, destroyed Qirong's palace, like, is not afraid to, like, kill people. But then Xie Lian's like, well, he's not really done anything wrong. Like, even Hua Cheng makes this statement with the mob. He's like, in my original form, I could wave one hand and kill all of them, but in this form, I can't really do much. And Xie Lian's like, yeah, I know. And I was like, Xie Lian, he just said he was going to kill everyone. And you were like, oh, well, just overlooks it, right? Overlooks it. But Xie Lian is so sure that it can't be Lang Ying that's the Brocade Immortal or the problem, and Qi Ying is not part of the problem either. And then Ling Wen is like, well, why don't you just bring all the robes to the upper court? And that was the suspicious thing, because I'm like, Ling Wen has trusted Xie Lian this entire series. Like, has never questioned Xie Lian's judgment about the way that he's taking care of things. Ling Wen's just like, oh, we'll just take care of it and we'll figure it out later. But the moment that Xie Lian just told her, or him in this form, told him that they'd already looked through all the garments and inspected everything, and then he's like, just give me a day to try to figure it out. And Ling Wen's like, well, I know it's here, so... But she doesn't say that. It was like, well, just bring him back to the palace and I'll check him there. I'm like, why couldn't you check them here? What? Like, it was very suspicious, right? And Xie Lian's like, okay, well, then I'll take it up there. And that's when Ling Wen says, oh, well, you might as well bring the other pieces because the robes that you're wearing may be infected too. But that part was kind of suspicious as well, because I'm like, well, if the robes that they're wearing are infected because they've been around the Brocade Immortal, if they're still around the Brocade Immortal and they change their clothes, then aren't they going to be infected all over again? Aren't those robes also going to be infected? So clearly Ling Wen saw the Brocade Immortal, wanted it back, and was like, oh, well, this is just how I'll get it. So bizarre, right? So bizarre. And the moment that he tricks her to ask what color the robes were, yeah, the robes that he got Lang Ying were maple. They were red, not white. Oh, that reveal. Like, Xie Lian is like Sherlock Holmes in this. Like, just brings up, like, Xie Lian has like a pipe in his hand. He's like just bringing up this case, like walking around, pacing around Ling Wen. Like, I would love to see this animated so much. But he just like, he does such a great job in this chapter of being a detective and pointing out everything. And it's just like reveal after reveal after reveal. It's like, what do we do? Right? It's just so good. And so, yeah, and Xie Lian tries to trick Ling Wen in a lot of ways by leaving 10 robes at home, by saying there's a replica, by making that whole story up, by talking about the robes that Lang Ying was wearing. And then he realizes you wouldn't know what robes Lang Ying was wearing because he had the Brocade Immortal on, and you just didn't know how it would look different to all of us. Right? The half maquillage woman, like bringing her back up again. Like Xie Lian is observant, and he's been paying attention and noting all these little things that have been adding up very suspiciously, that he's like, hey, this is kind of weird. I want to talk about it, but maybe you can clear the air, Ling Wen, and tell me what's up with this. Why do you want to go to my Puchi shrine to get the Brocade Immortal? So he talks about when the Brocade Immortal was stolen, the great Marshal Hall found out extremely quickly and started investigating. So when the Mount Tonglu opened up, a lot of artifacts and devices were stolen or set free during the chaos. And the Brocade Immortal was one of them. But Xie Lian's like, it was from the Great Marshal Hall. That's like cracking the biggest bank in the city. Like, the security there is pretty tough. So what I'm saying is that it was either Jun Wu or Ling Wen that had the best access. And Xie Lian's like, I'm saying it's not Jun Wu, so that leaves one option that's left. And he says that if Xie Lian had wanted to hide the Brocade Immortal, he would turn it into an extremely inconspicuous and normal-looking robe and toss it in the mortal realm, but keep an eye on it. So Xie Lian, of course, because Xie Lian, is cheap and thrifty, so basically what he's suggesting is that Ling Wen hid the Brocade Immortal in the mortal realm, and Xie Lian just happened to pick it up. Because as luck would have it, right? As luck would have it, Xie Lian just gets thrust into all these scenarios with all these people. That's just his lot in life, right? At this point, I was like, in self-congratulatory cheer at the major discount, he bought and brought home the legendary Brocade Immortal. And Ling Wen's like, well, we don't know that. Like, why would that be suspicious? And Xie Lian's like, because I did. I brought it home, and you know what it looks like, but you can't tell me what it looks like because it looks different to me than it does to you. So he's like, that's how I've narrowed it down. And he just brings all of this to the forefront. It just evidence after evidence after evidence to point out that it's her, that she has been the one hiding the Brocade Immortal, and she's come back to get it. He's like, it was you that provided. He's like, I don't know. I like that Xie Lian doesn't blame her for everything. He's like, I don't know if you made all the counterfeits and took them to the Ghost City. He's like, I can't prove that. And I don't know if it's you that's been doing all this counterfeit work. But you knew about it. You knew all the information. You gave me all the information. And you did it to distract me so that I wouldn't think about it when I was going on my quest. Because, yeah, not gonna lie, the last set of chapters, it was like there was so much happening all at once. It was like suddenly there was this Brocade Immortal, suddenly Qi Ying was there, suddenly they were on a quest, and it was like it all came out of nowhere. And I was like, wait a minute. It was so much. And it didn't give Xie Lian time to think about it until afterwards. So it just came out of nowhere for me that I'm like, wait a minute, Ling Wen's got stuff going on? And Xie Lian, what I love about the confrontation between Ling Wen and Xie Lian is it's very calm. Like, both of them are the only ones in the hall. It's just the two of them. They're just talking back and forth like friends. She's smiling the whole time, like, what? Like, just smiling the whole time, like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like just insanity, right? What? It's crazy. It's so crazy. But yeah, I don't know if I'm going to be able to wait. I don't. So yeah, but for next week anyway. But yeah, Xie Lian, just the two confronting each other and Xie Lian just throwing out all of these reveals. It's absolutely insanity. And Xie Lian tries to cover, what are you trying to say? And he's like, you don't know what the robe Lang Ying looked like because it was the Brocade Immortal. You're the one that created it. He's like, you glanced through the 88 ghost robes and didn't see a strange headless, sleeveless clock sack. So, of course, you were able to determine immediately the Brocade Immortal wasn't in the pile. That was such a good thing. So then, chapter 133, where Xie Lian, like, blows apart Ling Wen's armor. And Xie Lian's like, you can deny all this, but when I present that robe to the Great Martial Hall and they ask you to describe it, then it's going to become very obvious that you're the one that created it. So my thing is that Xie Lian talks about when the Brocade Immortal roamed the mortal realm, it sucked the blood of 500 people and was an object of great evil. So he talks about how that in the mortal realm, the Brocade Immortal had gone rampant and had killed 500 people, right? So it was an object of great evil. If Ling Wen had only broken into the Great Martial Hall to steal it and hadn't had the chance to use it, then it wasn't such a great harm. So they're saying, like, if you had just stolen it now, it's not as big of a deal because it's like, it's weird that you stole it, but it's not a big deal that you stole it. It's like, we just take it back. You'd probably be reprimanded, but it wouldn't be anything big. However, Ling Wen was appointed as a deputy general before she ascended. The earliest stories of the Brocade Immortal surfaced considerably after Ling Wen's tenure as deputy general, meaning Ling Wen had taken up her duties in the heavenly realm. She had created the Brocade Immortal as a heavenly official. So, by that logic, as a heavenly official, she had, whose duty was to protect mortals, she had seduced and murdered a mortal. And then it was able to run rampant and kill more people. That's bad. So it kind of goes back to Shi Wudu, right? Shi Wudu, as a heavenly official, switched the lives of his brother with another mortal and essentially murdered them. And then just went on doing his thing like it was no big deal. And that mortal that he murdered ended up going on and killing even more mortals, making it even worse. And so the same thing has happened here where Ling Wen created a device, killed someone with it, and then that went on to murder other people too. So yeah, it's a big thing. I'm just waiting to be like, Pei Ming, what did you do? I mean, he hasn't killed anybody except he's just crushed some ladies. I can't finish that joke because I'm not going to dignify it. We'll talk about Pei Ming. But in a little bit. But because Hua Cheng kind of defends him, oddly enough. But yeah, so that's a big bad thing, right? And Xie Lian is just like, yeah, this is bad. You created something that caused a lot of problems. And Ling Wen said, it's my bad luck that this mission was given to you. But we've got centuries of friendship between us. But I think if I pleaded for you to turn the other way, you wouldn't do it. You would encourage me to turn myself in. Am I right? And this kind of gets to the nitty gritty of it. Xie Lian's like, yeah, we've known each other for hundreds of years and you've supported me. And yeah, you did support me when nobody else would when I recently ascended again. But it's been business. We're not home bros. We're not homies. We're not bros. We're not besties. We've just been business partners and you've been a really good coworker. It's kind of like, Xie Lian and Ling Wen have been like coworkers. And it's like, you guys are friends. You guys get along great and everything, but if Ling Wen, the coworker, does something really bad, Xie Lian's like, I gotta turn you into upper management. It's nothing personal. It's just business. And in this case, you've killed someone and caused the possible deaths of 500 mortals. This is a problem. My thing is that Junwoo, the heavenly emperor of all, he's not been aware of any of this. He's not been aware of Shi Wudu doing things as a heavenly official, Ling Wen doing things as a heavenly official. Has he just been turning a blind eye and been like, I don't know what's going on? Has he been ignoring all of this? Has he been turning a blind eye? Is he that oblivious? Or does he know what's going on, but because they're good at their job and because they do more good than bad, he overlooks it? I don't know. And I feel like if Xie Lian confronts him about it, then he's going to be like, well, what about you? What about the bad that you've done? I turned the other way for that, so how can this be any different? I feel like a conversation like that is coming up. I feel like Xie Lian, what we know from Volume 3, is that Xie Lian's actions in Volume 3 caused a lot of problems and essentially got a lot of people killed inadvertently. So even though Xie Lian didn't necessarily create an evil spiritual device like we've seen with Ling Wen, and even though he didn't like swap someone's fates like we've seen with Shi Wudu, Xie Lian was responsible for a lot of bad things going down in Volume 3. And I feel like if Xie Lian questions Junwoo and says like, well, why did you let all this happen? All this bad corruption go on in the heavenly realm? He's going to be like, well, I tolerated you too, so... But did he though? Because he ended up shackling Xie Lian and sending him back to the mortal realm with his powers. So Xie Lian did pay the price, but Ling Wen and Shi Wudu did not. So that is a good note to have on here, that Xie Lian, he was shackled and paid a price for his actions. But Shi Wudu and Ling Wen did not. So what do we do with that? That's interesting. That is going to be a part where I'm like, what do we do with that? That's fascinating to me. Okay. So, in any case, Xie Lian's like, it's just my bad luck too. I've got to report it. Xie Lian's like, Boy Scouts honors. I got to turn you in. And then Ling Wen, that line where Ling Wen's like, sometimes you're smart, but you're also not very smart. And sometimes you're soft-hearted, but sometimes you're cold-hearted too. And I'm like, girl, calling Xie Lian cold-hearted because he wouldn't let her go. I was like, no, that's such a phrase though. Oof. And so Xie Lian's like, it's in my possession. I'm going to deliver it to the Great Martial Hall. And so that's when Ling Wen says, I want to see the Brocade Immortal. I only need a day's time. After all, if I'm going to turn myself to Great Martial Hall, there may not be any opportunity to see it afterwards. I'm not going to do anything. Yesterday, when you showed yourself, you said it showed itself, I was shocked. It's been so many years, I have never seen Baijing again. So, there's something there, especially after what Hua Cheng says about her. There's something there. Like, I don't trust her for a second. No, she smiled and lied to his face. Like, she just smiled like it was nothing. It was like, what, Brocade Immortal? What proof do you have? What? Even after Xie Lian cornered her, you can't trust Ling Wen. I'm like, girl, you're good at your job, but you can't trust her at all. No. So I'm like, when she's like, oh, I'm not going to run away. I'm like, bullshit, you're not. They're in the middle of all this chaos that Qi Rong has caused. She's going to slip out with that Brocade Immortal. I guarantee it. She's going to find a way to try to run off with it. Now, what do we do after that? I don't know. But I'm like, Xie Lian, of course, is a cinnamon bun deity and is like, well, yeah, I'll take you to go see it. I'm like, don't take her to go see it. You take her to Junwoo right now. You could have solved this problem, Xie Lian. But it was like, it's like when the coworker that murders the other coworker is like, hey, can I borrow your car? I'm going to bring it right back. It's like, you don't give him the car. But he does. He says he's going to take her to see it. And I liked the explanation of Baijing that people called him Zhao Bai, where it was like little white instead of Zhao Hua. It's like little white, like Spot, like a pet name like Spot. And then Bai Chi is one who's an idiot, one who's blank in the mind. That's just, you know. And so Ling Wen, I gave him the name Bai Jing. No one ever calls it, but not many yet, so not many knew his name. But if you call him by that name, he'll be happy. It's weird. I'm like, so what's interesting is that in the legend, like Xie Lian says, the young girl, the young man who loved deeply treated him only. It says the way the young girl the way the girl that Bai Jing had loved treated him only as one would think as cruelly and horrid. If there wasn't any bone deep hatred, then it was pure cold-bloodedness. But yet her tone is friendly talking about him. So either the story is wrong and that there's more to it than that there's more to this Brocade Immortal, that her and the guy had some relationship and there's some reason she killed him. We just don't know what the deal is. We don't have the full story, so we don't know what's going on. Or she's a cold-blooded killer who can say it all with a smile and is like, no, it's fine. Everything's great. Like, it's one of the two things. Either the one story's wrong and we don't have all the info, or she is cold-blooded and malicious and we just haven't seen it come out yet. It's always the quiet ones, right? But yeah, the best part of this whole chapter, though, best part is when they're leaving the Great Marshall Avenue and they run into Pei Ming. And Pei Ming's like, well, Ling Wen, you best be careful. Anybody that's up next to Xie Lian, something bad happens to him. And it's like, yeah. Pei Ming's on to Xie Lian. I'm just, oh man, I'm so convinced. And so Pei Ming's instincts are indeed accurate. Xie Lian's like, well, yes, I am taking Ling Wen away. Don't follow us. I wonder if Pei Ming will follow them. I don't know. So they go back to the Puchi Shrine, and of course, San Long is there sweeping. San Long disguising himself as Lang Ying. I like that Xie Lian knew. I like that Xie Lian has known for a while. I was questioning it in the last set. I'm like, how does Xie Lian not know? There's been so many obvious signs, but he did. He was just too busy worrying about the matter at hand and proving that Ling Wen had the brocade to out Hua Cheng as Lang Ying. He was too focused on it to worry too much, right? And so Xie Lian, I love that. It's so cute. I loved Qi Ying, like, playing around the Puchi Shrine, like, acting like a kid, like, swinging from trees and, like, climbing them. And, like, when he steals the yam out of the thing and he, like, eats it really quickly, he's like, this is the only time it's going to be edible. And, like, it's so cute. I'm like, oh, I love Qi Ying. Qi Ying is so sweet. I love him. I love how simple he is and how fun he is and just has this, like, childlike heart. It's so adorable. And I love that Xie Lian's like, it's not cooked, don't eat it. He's like, this is the only time I can eat it. It's like, great. And so Xie Lian outing Hua Cheng is amazing. Being like, who do you think is the most handsome of the gods and ghosts? And of course, Lang Ying says, why you? He says, besides me is like the one in red. And I'm like, oh, everything's the one in red except for the one in green, which is the dumbest. Love it. And then I love that as soon as he pulled out the board to do the calligraphy, I was like, Xie Lian, you are trying to trick him into admitting it was him. He's like, go on, make this establishment plaque. Just do it. It's great. And then he's like, Gege, I can't. And I love that it's his voice. I love it's his deep voice that comes out. Gege, you're wrong. I'm wrong. I love it. And Xie Lian just laughing his ass off, just being like, oh, San Long really is so busy. I'm glad Xie Lian is not mad at Hua Cheng. He actually finds it hilarious that he's hiding in this body. It's great. So Xie Lian, he tricks Hua Cheng to revealing himself. So we find out something in this. We find out that Lang Ying is actually in the ghost city. Now, why you would take Lang Ying to the ghost city where all the ghosts are freaking out, I don't know, but I guess he wanted to get him out of there in case if he tried to attack Xie Lian or something. Who knows? He's like, why are you disguised as him? Bring him back now. He says, I've temporarily sent him to the ghost city as a guest. And Xie Lian's like, well, I guess since it's you, I won't worry about it. And then I like that Ling Wen isn't worried about the Brocade Immortal, but is worried about Xie Lian's cooking. And it's like, throw it out, it's ruined. But then 2 hours later, Xie Lian's like, no, everything's fine. Oh my God, the meatballs. The meatballs. The 3 times where Chan Yishan is like, didn't you stew with water? Why did it turn to meatballs? Didn't you make stew? Why is it meatballs? I want to see how that is said in this part here. Like, how does he say that? It's great. What does he say here? He says, oh, I want to find that scene where he talks about it. He's like, this dish is called the Incorruptible Chastity Meatballs. He's like, weren't you stewing something? How did it turn into meatballs? Weren't you stewing something? How did it turn into meatballs? I love that Qi Ying is like, this was soup. How did this change? Why? How is your cooking so bad that it changed from a stew into a solid matter? That's not how this works. I love it. And of course, I love with the image that you know, Hua Cheng can eat Xie Lian's food and just makes little comments about it. And then I just love, he maintained a smile. He smiled and watched Chan Yishan swallow. He smiled as he watched his face turn pale. He smiled as he watched him crumple to the floor. It's like the rule of 3. In comedy, there's a rule of 3. You got to get like the punchlines on the 3rd time, or you repeat something 3 times and it's funny. That's just so good. It's wonderful. I love it. And then Gege. And then we have Xie Lian and Hua Cheng in the private communication array, having a little chit chat with one another. I like that they secretly go into this communication array, and honestly, Ling Wen probably will guess by the end of this that they have a private communication array, because it is a little obvious when Xie Lian and because at one point Hua Cheng gets up from the bench as Lang Ying to leave, and Xie Lian's like, no, don't go, and then they stare into each other's eyes for a long period of time, talking internally like, Ling Wen's gonna get it. Ling Wen's gonna figure out what's going on, that they're talking to each other in this spiritual communication array. She's gonna get it, and that's gonna out to her that Lang Ying is the supreme ghost, because the monks outside are looking for the supreme ghost. So I mean, I have full confidence that Ling Wen is going to figure it out. But I just love that Hua Cheng and Xie Lian get lost in their own private conversations while they're standing in front of people that are wondering what the hell they're doing. It's great. It's wonderful. And so I love them talking in the communication array. And so then that's when Hua Cheng talks about Ling Wen. Cruel and cunning, heartless and merciless. Now that you've brought her back, things might not end so easily. And Xie Lian's like, I've never heard anybody talk about Ling Wen like this, but I would believe Hua Cheng, because so far Hua Cheng's been like 100 for 100. Like, he's been batting full average, because he's been batting at 100 here, because everything he said so far has been slightly true. So I would kind of believe he says that Ling Wen. And now how Hua Cheng knows this, we do not know. But says that Ling Wen is cruel, cunning, and merciless, as well as heartless. And the fact that she had that argument with Xie Lian with a smile that was so polite, I was like, yeah, no, I'm believing Hua Cheng. I think Hua Cheng knows about Ling Wen, stuff that we don't, and I'm a little worried. And so he says that she is the #1 civil god in all the heavens. Her eyes and ears are everywhere, and her arms are far-reaching. You need to be on guard for getting helpers. So at first, I thought the mob was of her doing, but it was Qi Rong's, right? So Hua Cheng is worried. He's worried about Ling Wen getting help to escape with the Brocade Immortal. I don't think that Ling Wen's working with Qi Rong. I could never imagine that team up ever. She seems, even if she's cold and heartless and merciless, I could never imagine Ling Wen with Qi Rong. So I don't think that the Qi Rong bringing forth the cultivators to go after Hua Cheng, I do think that's a follow-up to what he told Xie Lian back at the temple. I think it just happened to be a coincidence and Xie Lian's bad luck that they're brought to the door while Ling Wen is there. However, knowing that Ling Wen is not a reliable narrator and possibly not trustworthy, that is making me question everything that we've been told from the start about the calamities, about everything, right? Being told that, oh, the Blackwater's just low key, hasn't been around, everything's fine. We found out that was a lie. A total lie. The idea that, oh, well, Junwu defeated Bai Wusheng, they're dead now. Are they? Are they dead? I don't believe it. Nope. I feel like, nope, I don't feel like Bai Wusheng is dead. We don't know where Bai Wusheng is, but I don't feel like they're dead. I feel like that was a lie. I'm questioning everything Ling Wen said now because I don't know if I can trust her. Like everything she told Xie Lian, she's been so calm and cool and easy to lie. What can we believe, right? And maybe that's the point. Maybe Xie Lian, is Xie Lian's going to be presented with the idea that he has to question her and he's going to have faith in her. I don't know. But Pei Ming gets brought up. And Xie Lian's like, oh, is Pei Ming someone that would spy and would work for Ling Wen? But Hua Cheng says no. If the water tyrant was still around, she would definitely ask for his assistance because he aids based on acquaintance, not reason. So Xie Lian is suggesting that Pei Ming does things for logical reasons. That he does things logically. If it was Pei Ming, as long as you tell him the truth of everything, he might not choose to aid corruption. So he is not an aid of corruption. That's rather interesting. I find it interesting that Hua Cheng has always kind of had respect for Pei Ming, which is interesting. I've always found it neat. But especially now that we know the Water Master and Ling Wen are not the most trustworthy of people based on what they've done, that kind of puts Pei Ming in an interesting position as being, it's so fascinating because at the beginning of the series, I was like, down with Pei Ming, get him out of here because of what he said about Banyu. And I still don't like it. I still don't like the way that he treats Banyu like that. But it does say something that his character has been one of the more like pure characters in terms of being trustworthy. At least compared to his bros, I'm like, what, the 3 tumors, right? Am I right? The 3 tumors. And I'm wondering if that honesty and if him being someone that works so logically is going to come back and bite him in the end. I don't know. So far, Shiwudu's died. Ling Wen, what fate awaits her, we don't know. But in any case, he's like, someone is here, be careful. All these cultivators show up, like 50 to 60, this luxurious cultivation robe wearing guy with yellow charms. Like all these snobby cultivators come looking for Hua Cheng. A crowd of 50 to 60 had planned this meeting at the Puchi Shrine. And it wasn't just for show. They had all these spiritual tools. To have so many come all of a sudden, it couldn't herald anything good. Hua Cheng put down his bowl and chopsticks and rose to his feet. And they're like, old monks and foul cultivators dare chase me all the way here. I'm sorry to have brought these troubles to your door, Gege. I'll divert them away. And so what ends up happening in this moment is that Hua Cheng says that he's going to leave and chase away the mob. And Xie Lian is like, no. Xie Lian says, no, you're not. He's like, you're not going to go anywhere. And Ling Wen's like, what's going on? Again, Ling Wen doesn't know. The only one that knew they have a private spiritual communication array are Heshan and Windmaster. They are the only ones that know about Xie Lian and Hua Cheng's private communication array, except Ling Wen may know about it now because she's probably going to put 2 and 2 together. But other than that, nobody else knows. And Xie Lian's like, don't go. Tell me honestly, is the opening of Mount Tonglu affecting you? And Hua Cheng is like, no, I'm fine. And Xie Lian's like, no, stop lying. Like, you're a supreme ghost king. You normally wouldn't be afraid of them at all. Why wouldn't you just beat them down and chase them away directly? Why do you have to divert them away? You weren't playing a prank and changing to this form. Am I right? So he's like, no, you becoming this form of Lang Ying is not by just you joking. That's not the case. The stronger the ghost, the more Mount Tonglu's opening has an effect on them. So if it was Xie Lian himself, he's like, I would seal away my powers and transform into a small creature and store those powers away to avoid going berserk and wait for it all to be over. So that's essentially what Hua Cheng has done. He's like, no, you've basically converted to this kid form so that you can save your energy, but also so that you're not as strongly affected by Mount Tonglu. And also, like we talked about in the last set of episodes, the last set of chapters, that he wouldn't be affected by Mount Tonglu, and he wouldn't go after Xie Lian so much, right? Like he did at the Temple of 1,000 Lights. And so then, of course, Xie Lian is like, this mob is all Qi Rong's doings. Qi Rong said he'd go get a mob together, and he did. And he led them right to Puji Shrine. I love that Xie Lian's just like, Qi Rong, you! And we don't get to see how he cusses at him. But it's like, it wasn't a bluff. Qi Rong, if anything, is good at inciting a mob. That's his main MO. He's like, if he will do anything, it's incite this mob, right? But Hua Cheng's like, well, they're only here for me. I can't kill them with my hand. I can at least make them get lost. And Xie Lian's like, nope. I love that Xie Lian puts his foot down. I love that Xie Lian's like, you are not going to get yourself possibly hurt. You're not going to hurt others. And you are clearly not in the position to fight in this form. So you are not. He's like, I'm going to protect you. I like that Xie Lian's flipping the script. And he's like, you've protected me all this time. Now it's my turn to protect you. We'll figure this out. This will be fine. And I like that Hua Cheng's like, well, just let me go. And he says, if you leave now, don't ever come back to see me again. And I love that Hua Cheng crying out, Your Highness. I love that that's Hua Cheng's breaking point. He's like, no, the last thing I want to do is never see you again. And Xie Lian's like, then you just sit down and let me take this. I love Xie Lian like putting his foot down and being like, no, I've got this. Like that power reversal, I'm here for it, but I'm like, what the hell? And so Xie Lian's like, I got this. I like that Qi Ying like wakes up from his stupor and he's like, do you need me to go beat somebody up? I love that if anything goes awry and Xie Lian needs some muscle, I like that Chan Yi is like, I can do it. I love it, right? And so then I also love that the villagers, they kind of stand up for Xie Lian. They're like, hey, we actually like him because he helps fix our stuff. He's like, please don't chase him away. Please don't get him in trouble. Please leave the Puji Shrine alone. I love the villagers, like, they all band together to try to keep Xie Lian safe. It's really cute. I love it a lot. But this cultivator, he is just so convinced that he's going to find evil amiss. And what's curious is that when he looks at the jar and the half maquillage woman is like, that's not a real ghost. Bring me the real ghost. But then he can't quite make out what Xie Lian is. He's like, I don't understand you. He's like, this isn't right. He's like, how does this work? He's like, you sometimes are covered in the essence of evil, sometimes glowing with spiritual light, and sometimes dim and listless. Like there's all of these things like blurring in with Xie Lian, which we know he's got the cursed shackle. He does have divine energy, but it's contained. And then he also has some spiritual energy from Hua Cheng still stuck on his lips. Oh my God. And that's been a little while, right? So must have sucked a lot of energy out of them lips for it to linger this long. Am I right? Oh my God. I just love that he's like, the essence of evil, the strongest essence of evil is on his lips. Yep, so this guy with the heaven's eye that thinks he can see everything. I like the effect of this big cultivator in this luxurious robe, like smearing blood to make a third eye and claiming to use his psychic powers. And Xie Lian's just like, wow, this is interesting. So the big question is, one, how's Hua Cheng going to react to this knowledge that Xie Lian has been, his fighting with Hua Cheng with his mouth? How's he going to handle that? Two, how are they getting these cultivators to go away? Because they got to get them to leave. How are they going to get them to leave without damaging the Puchi Shrine or fighting Xie Lian and Hua Cheng? Because Xie Lian can't do much. And then three, where does that leave Ling Wen? Because Ling Wen, I don't think Qi Ying can contain her. I won't be surprised if she sees this opportunity of chaos and is like, oh, there's a Brocade Immortal, bye, and then runs away. And then what do we do? If that happens, what do we do? We got 1 chapter left of volume 4. 1 chapter, and then we'll be good. So yeah, I'm glad we found out about Hua Cheng in this set of chapters, because last week, I'm not gonna lie, I was like, if this drags on and we don't find out about Lang Ying past this volume, I'm gonna be mad. I was like, if we don't find out this volume if it's Hua Cheng or not, I'm gonna have issues. So I'm glad we found out. But I wasn't expecting the Ling Wen reveal. Not expecting that. And I have a feeling, now that Ling Wen's out in the open, Shi Wudu's dead, Heshan is still at large, Windmaster's MIA, things are awry, Hua Cheng is sealed in this child's body, and it just happens to be a child's body that looks exactly like the child that he was when Xie Lian first met him. Imagine that. I have a feeling volume 5 is going to be very interesting, but I know nothing about it, and I don't want to know anything about it, so please no spoilers, please no hints or clues. We're going to start it next week. We're going to do chapters 135 and 136 next week. 135 goes from pages 357 to 372, so it's like 15, 16 pages, and then there's like, it's going to end up being like almost 20 to 30 pages. So it may be a short video next week, but we'll bridge the 2 volumes together and it'll be a lot of fun. So who knows? Sometimes when I see short chapters, it ends up being a lot of discussion. So we'll just see what happens with that. So I hope y'all enjoyed this reaction discussion. I'm excited to hear your thoughts down below. But in the meantime, I hope y'all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah! I'll be back next week with the final chapter of Volume 4 and the first chapter of Volume 5 of Heaven Official's Blessing. Bye!